It's late 1942. U.S. soldiers are landing on the coast of Algeria, bringing with them America's industrial war machine. The Nazis have surrounded Stalingrad in an attempt to finish off the Soviets and close the Eastern Front. Jump forward to 1943. After winning in North Africa, the Allied powers invade Italy. Back on the Eastern Front, the Soviets are surrounding the Nazis, ending 6 months of fighting and the Battle of Stalingrad. Operation Barbarossa has failed. Sounds like the Allied powers are gaining an upper hand in the war. Today we'll explore some key moments that paved the way for Allied victory. Our big picture question is, how did the United States and Soviet Union impact World War II? And the guiding questions. Why was the Tehran Conference a significant moment in World War II? Why were Operation Overlord and Operation Bagration turning points in World War II? And what was the significance of the Battle of the Bulge and the Battle of Berlin? We're going to head to Iran in 1943 to see history unfold. The Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom, or the Big Three, are meeting to plan the invasion of Nazi-controlled Europe. This is a major moment in history. Why? For starters, President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Chairman Joseph Stalin are meeting for the first time, meaning a capitalist nation and a communist nation are combining forces to defeat fascism. Up till this point, most people thought that capitalist and communist societies could not work together. Let's listen in.
We've proven that the Nazis can be defeated. In Stalingrad, the people of Russia became an army and defeated the Nazi invaders. We are poised to push the Nazis out of the Balkans. But why is there no invasion in the West? There's no Western invasion because France is a Nazi fortress. We have every intention of opening up a Western front. But invading France is impossible without finding a way to make Hitler further divide his forces. As we speak, the Axis powers are tied down in the Italian Alps. But Hitler expects an invasion in France, so we need another distraction. If the Soviets begin operations in the Balkans and Poland, the Eastern Front will demand Nazi forces and resources, giving us an opportunity. We will continue to engage the Axis along the Eastern Front. Once your two armies invade France, we'll move towards Poland in the Balkans. We must come together in this to stop the spread of tyranny in the world.
The Tehran Conference solidified the Big Three's commitment to one another. They decided to open up the Western Front. Afterwards, the Soviets would push Axis territory. Operation Overlord and Operation Bagration, the name of the planned invasions of Nazi-controlled Europe, would begin in 1944. Before we move forward, let's answer the first guiding question. Why was the Tehran Conference a significant moment in World War II? In this section, we'll use a series of maps and videos to figure out the impact of Operation Overlord and Operation Bagration on World War II. Just before these operations started, the Axis powers controlled most of Europe. On June 6th, Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of northern France, began. Allied forces secured 5 beachheads in the region, creating an entry point into Nazi-controlled Europe. Within a month, over 1 million soldiers had moved through those beaches and into France. July 22, 1944, Operation Bagration initiated a series of assaults along the Eastern Front, designed to push Nazi forces out of Soviet territory and invade Greater Germany and the Balkans. Over the course of 2 months, the Soviets pushed the Axis powers back towards Poland, laying siege to Warsaw. On the Western Front, the Allied powers were invading Nazi-controlled France. The next map shows the territorial situation in Europe at the end of the operations. What has changed? To find out, let's count the number of fronts that the Axis powers had to fight on after Operation Overlord and Operation Bagration. 1. The Western Front. 2. The Southern Front. 3. The Eastern Front. Operation Overlord created a Western Front, forcing the Axis powers to divide their military among 3 large areas. This made it much harder for the Axis to defend itself. On the final map, we'll look at 2 key areas threatened by Operation Overlord and Bagration. The Rhineland was a major Axis-controlled industrial center for coal, steel, and iron. Operation Overlord enabled the Allied powers to enter the Rhineland around the end of 1944, threatening Axis production. Now look at the Balkans on the Eastern Front. Remember, the Balkans held key resources, such as oil, and provided access to important trade routes. But Operation Bagration forced Axis troops north to defend the center of the Eastern Front, allowing the Allied powers to take the Balkans, and with it, valuable resources needed to continue fighting. Let's review. The operations forced the Nazis to divide their militaries along multiple fronts, and helped the Allied powers take key industrial areas and resources the Axis powers needed to keep fighting. Overall, the operations weakened the Axis powers and made Germany vulnerable to invasion. The next guiding question is, why were Operation Overlord and Operation Bagration turning points in World War II? On the Western Front, Operation Overlord brought the Allied forces to Germany's doorstep. In a final desperate attempt, the Germans prepared for a counteroffensive. Let's take a look at these 2 maps to understand the significance of the Battle of the Bulge. On the left is the front between Allied and Axis powers, just before the German counteroffensive. On the right is the bulge created by the Germans after a few weeks of fighting. In the Battle of the Bulge, the Allied forces were initially surprised, pushed back, and cut off from one another. Take a look at our final map. The bulge is gone. The Allied forces recovered, forcing the Nazis to retreat and destroying much of their military. After the Battle of the Bulge, Germany found itself in an irreversible situation. They were divided along multiple fronts, had suffered numerous defeats, and lost key industrial areas. German losses at the Battle of the Bulge were irreplaceable, which meant they could not resist Allied advancements into Western Germany. But what's going on in the Eastern Front? In the final weeks of April 1945, Soviet forces initiated the Battle of Berlin by fighting their way in the capital of the Third Reich. On April 30th, Hitler and a number of important Nazi officials committed suicide. Look at this image. Before the battle, Stalin ordered his men to plant the Soviet flag atop the Reichstag, Germany's capital building. Why do you think Stalin gave this order? Planting the flag atop the Reichstag symbolized total victory by conquering the Nazis' capital building. Let's review. The Battle of the Bulge and Battle of Berlin finished off the Axis war machine by taking away key materials and leadership, rendering Axis resistance impossible and symbolizing total victory in Europe. Let's pause and answer the final guiding question. What was the significance of the Battle of the Bulge and the Battle of Berlin? Both the US and the USSR played a key role in ending the war in Europe. In the Soviet Union, an estimated 26 million people died. 10 million of those were soldiers. By comparison, the United States lost a little over 100,000 soldiers and no civilians in Europe. But America's main contribution to the war in Europe was resources and materials. The United States spent over $341 billion in World War II, more than any of the other major powers. In the face of both the United States and the Soviet Union's commitment to the war, the Axis powers' war machine in Europe came to a sudden halt. But the war was not over in the Pacific, so there is more to learn because history is everywhere.
Hey, hey.